In this video, I'm going to show you a very effective way of threading with a manual lathe to a shoulder without having to cut a relief groove. Relief grooves are a very standard way of doing things. Most people do it that way. A lot of your prints are going to call for it. And one of the main reasons for doing a relief groove is to keep from crashing the shoulder, having a place to stop and so forth. There are issues, however, that a lot of people are not aware of. I found out about this when I started slugging barrels. Oh man, 25 years ago, longer ago than that actually, probably. Anyway, slugging, when you're slugging a barrel, you use a lubricated lead slug, you bump it up, you lube the bore with some heavy oil, you bump it up tight in the bore, push it back and forth with brass rods until the slug isn't getting loose, but it's got some light drag to it. And you'll feel variations in a bore as small as 1/10,000th of an inch. And I've had, many times when I first started doing this, I noticed that if I would cut a relief groove, like putting a muzzle brake on, for example, sliding the bullet through the barrel, but perfect. And I'd cut the tenon down where the muzzle brake has to go. And of course, I'd cut a relief groove and then thread it. So often I found when I was pushing a slug that instead of going all the way to the end and coming out the end with no difference in feel, when I hit right where that relief groove is, it just stopped. The slug stops solid, and there's a constriction in the bore, and you got to bump the slug sometimes pretty hard to even get it past that spot, and then it loosens up past that. Now, if you have a real sharp tool and do it properly, it's not a problem. The plunge cutting and the worst ones I see nowadays seem to be made with the CNC machines. The factory's making them, or whoever's doing them with CNCs, they're running them in hard and fast and cutting the relief groove and then cutting the threads after that. Works fine, but let me show you what I'm talking about here. Hopefully you can see this here. This upper one is a barrel tenon. We'll just call it a muzzle brake. Call it, from the muzzle end here. Got the tenon cut down to the correct size, and the threads are there, but there's no relief groove. The bore stays perfect underneath that. The other one is if you cut a relief groove, and this is what I find so often when you cut a relief groove, you just plunge cut in. If your bit's not razor sharp, you don't have your speeds and feeds right, it can create a constriction in the bore right here. So when the bullet goes through that, it gets smaller, which squeezes the bullet smaller. Then when the bullet comes out past that, it gets loose in the bore, and you lose your stability and lose some of your accuracy. Also have where the bore itself can enlarge just under you're taking metal off the muzzle brake in or anything, take metal off anywhere. The metal is supporting the bore, supporting the stress that's in the bore from the barrel manufacturing process. But that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, a lot of times I find where barrels enlarge underneath the muzzle brake threads when it comes to the end, but that's a story for a different day because I see it all the time. Anyway, we're going to talk about this. I've developed a method. I've used it. I've been teaching gunsmithing classes and teaching people how to run lathes for close to 30 years now, and I constantly get it. Where I get guys coming in here, never run a lathe in their life. I'm going to start showing the basics. They can go home. I do this in a class here in my shop mostly, but they go home then and practice and become proficient at it. But even the first day, they've never run a lathe in their life. The first day they're cutting threads to a shoulder, no problem at all. I'm going to show you how I do that. I do markings on the lathe to follow. If I'm watching that tool bit cutting. Cutting on the end of the tenon here. If I'm watching the tool bit, it gets covered with chips and with oil or whatever, and you can't see it, and the pucker factor goes way up then. That's a problem. But what I use, and I'll show you this you'll see close-ups of it here in a minute when I'm doing this. But I mark the carriage down here. I just put some I normally use blue because it stands out, but a Sharpie mark on the zero line as well as on the carriage dial. So when the cartridge, or when the carriage is feeding while I'm cutting my threads, I've got that all set to where just before I hit the shoulder, I set my stopping point down here, and I can watch that mark come, stop at the right time every single time. It just works so easy. And you pull the bit out, come back over, reset 0, advance the compound. If you're doing it that method anyway, advance the compound, feed it through again. And just stop again every time. And man, that works so good. I've done it this way for so long. And that's the way I teach other people to do it anyway too. And it works very, very well. There's more than one way to do things, but boy, this is an effective method. So I'm gonna show you how to do that in this video. I'm gonna turn the tenon down to the right size now. And maybe fire it up. Okay, I'm going to fit this muzzle brake to this. I'm going to cut the thread here. I'm going to turn the tenon down to size. Should be a 3/4 24. I'm just going to verify that real fast. Yeah, so that's the 3/4 24 thread that thing's going to take. We'll make the tenon 600 thousandths long. I'll make it simple. Touch off, 0 that. Stay a little short of that. I'll just go there. It's all looking good. $785. We're going to go to 750. 745 to 750, that range. I'm going to make a short little cut here and see where I'm at. In case I have to adjust the dimension a little bit. 750 right on the nose. Okay, that should be about right. I'll measure that a little bit, see where we're at here. 748 and a half, that's be perfect. So. Now this is a used barrel, I'm just putting a muzzle brake on this, so don't need much of a shoulder on this one. And I'm not going to do a relief grip, so I'm just going to set up the threading tool now. I got my height preset on this. I got to get the angle set correct here. Okay, I'm going to set up for 24 threads per inch a minute. Look at my chart here. 24 is ACMY. I'm going to go ACM. MY. My lead screw's turning down here now, so I know that's correct. I'm going to double check, make sure the feed rate is set where it's supposed to be. You can use a little thread gauge like this and put it in the thread, but you got to cut a thread first before you can do that. So I'll show you another way to do that real fast. I've got the lathe kicked into gear. So when I put the threading lever down, the carriage is gonna start feeding. So a great way to check if you got the right thread pitch set on your lathe, you can use a little, your little thread pitch gauge and cut a partial thread, then check it. Now you've got a partial thread cut. If you got it wrong, then you got a problem. So this is what I show in my classes. Show the guys all the time. Just make it easy but the fast way to double check stuff before you start making any cuts. So we got the gear train in the lathe set up for 24 threads per inch, ACMY. Get that set. I'm going to kick the threading lever in, start feeding the table. See, now you can see that the carriage is feeding. And I've got little Sharpie marks right here. You can see it or not on the lathe and the camera. But anyway, I've got a couple little Sharpie marks on there. And I'll just zero the DRO. If you don't have a DRO, put a little dial indicator, a little travel dial indicator up against here and zero that. Now roll it one revolution. Roll the carriage one revolution and see how far it goes. That shows about 42 thousandths. Roll it a second time. 84 thousandths. So okay, the 24 threads per inch, how far is it supposed to go? So just take one turn, divide by whatever the threads per inch are, in this case 24, so 1 divided by 24 equals 41.6, just under 42 thousandths per revolution. Got the threading lever kicked in, got it zeroed on the DRO right here. Roll it one revolution till my marks line up. Or the correct thread settings, 41.4. So we're good. We know our gear train is set in the right thing. It's going to cut a 24 threads per inch thread. So just verified that. So now we're ready to go. I'm going to set up to do the threading. The first thing I'm going to do is I call it setting my handle, the zeros handles. Make it easy to do that. I really like the cross slide handle to be on the right hand side on an external thread. That way the weight of the handle itself holds everything in place. If I have it over here on the left side, then the weight of the handle is going to continually, if the machine vibrates a little bit, it's going to want to back off. That'll pull the bit back slightly. So this just helps ensure holding everything in place. That's the first setting. And the second reason for that is when I'm threading, I kick the threading lever in, and I've got my hands on the levers I need. I got my hands on the threading lever as well as on the cross slide lever. So at the end of every threading pass, all I gotta do is just lift both hands. So that stops the feed and pulls the bit out at exactly the same time. But what happens if something goes wrong partway through? And let's say you had your setting set wrong in the first place, or who knows what. Something can go wrong. It rarely ever does, but it can. And if that happens, you don't have your hands on the levers. There's a lot of levers and handles here. Which ones you going to grab and which way you going to move with them? This just makes it so simple. If you get your hands on the two levers you need, and if anything goes wrong, just stop. Just lift both hands. That stops the feed as well as pulls the tool bit out. And this is what I teach new guys, because they got to go home after taking a class here and start practicing. And that's not the pucker factor there when you're learning to thread and everything else, but that just takes the fear out of it. Just simple to do. And if something's not right, don't seem right, stop it, go back, double check all your settings, and make another pass. Also, when things are going right, at the end of every single pass, that tool bit's coming right up to the shoulder, and you got to pull out just before you get there. And that, if you're watching the tool bit. Let me get closer here a second. But if you're watching that tool bit get real close to a shoulder like that, man, that's intimidating. Let me zoom that in and see what I'm talking about. Because you're getting in there, especially when the bit's deeper, the side of the bit up against that shoulder, it's super, super close. And that's something you really puts a lot of fear in people, and rightfully so, because things can go wrong. And get my settings back a little ways. I'll zoom in pretty quick when we're actually cutting. But anyway, just a way to set up and stop doing that. So I got my handle. So go back to my handles now anyway. My first handle is the cross slide, and I'm going to set that at 0 with the handle on the right-hand side. So when I lift the handle, it pulls the bit back. The second one is the compound, and I'm gonna put some Dicom on the tenon so you can see the cuts happening a bit better. But I normally don't use Dicom on there. But when you guys start out, I really suggest starting out just using it. It makes it easy to see what's happening. The second cut, we're going to make it with the lathe running. Feed the tool bit in till it just touches. So let me get some Dicom on here a second. Okay, I got the Dicom on there. The Dicom's dry now, or dry enough anyway. So I'm gonna set my compound, the 0 on the compound. So get up close here. Oops. Like I'm gonna 0 the DRO on the correct 0 reading of my cross slides. I'm gonna back the compound up, get above the part just a little ways, and run it in till it just starts to scratch the surface. Let me zoom my camera in a little bit better here. There, just scratch the surface. I'll set the 0 there. Okay. The third 0 is going to be my carriage 0 down below. And I've got a different camera on that, so let's get that set. So now I'm going to get us, very, very close to the shoulder with that, but not touching. Let me zoom in even closer here. And what you're looking at is the left-hand side of this bit, not the point. You're looking at the left-hand side, seeing where that's at in relationship to the shoulder. It's pretty close. That's that little gap that's in there. Let me get a pointer here and make sure you know what I'm talking about here. A little gap right, it's going to be right in here. That's what I'm going to be looking at. So now I'm going to set my 0 down below here. So now that's my 0 there that I'm going to be stopping at. So I back the tool bit out. Okay. So now I'm going to come out one revolution, and I'm going to go under power now. I'm just going to go slow. I'm going to slow the RPM down. Normally on a 24 threads per inch, I thread at about 250 RPM in that range. I really urge you to go slow. Go much slower than that until you get comfortable doing it. Then you can start speeding up again. There's no big rush here. So anyway, that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to at 175 RPM. I'll do it there. So I got my cross slide set on 0. I'm one revolution out. You can see it on the DRO here. I'm 200 thousandths out. Wait for my marks to come around. So I'm going to feed it now. Okay, I'm looking at the tenon. Now I'm going to look down here and stop when my mark gets on 0. Now where am I at? And I'm exactly the same place. I'm looking very good. Come back off the end of the tenon. And I'm going to go back down to 0 and start making my cut. A little oil on here. A light scratch pass. You see I'm stopping when the zeros, you can see that camera when the 0 marks are lining up, or a couple marks either way is okay. It's only pretty close to that. Start trial fitting the part. I'm going to go a couple thousand at a time until it starts to go on. And I'm just going to use the part to test the fit. I can use a thread micrometer or thread wires. The part has to go on, so since I have the part in hand, that's the simplest way to do it. Plus, a lot of guys, when I teach the class, they don't have thread micrometers and stuff like that. So I would just show you the method using this, fitting the part itself when you have that option. Okay, a little tight, so I'm going to go 1,000 at a time. I'm going to zoom way in on this so you can watch. I'll do a relief, I'll do a spring pass here and do without oil so you can kind of see, maybe see what the cut happening here. So. Saw that there or not, but I think it's happened really quick with it running fast like that. But that's just a way to do that. I'm going to just dress the tip of those threads a little bit. Choose the side of the bit here and straight to the left, just real lightly like that. Just kind of kiss that edge and take a little file and smooth the top of the threads. And So like that. These are the last thread right there. We're just as it's shallowing up and pulling out. See how close to the shoulder that is? About as close as you dare to get, and have it not hit the side of the bit, not hit the shoulder, but it gives me a few thousandths of cushion. So if you go past it a little bit, I've got on my carriage down here, I've got 3, 4, 5 marks I could go past. If I don't stop right on 0, if it just goes on past, and I get it stopped about in there, I still won't hit the shoulder. So I got a pretty good cushion there. So that's just a great way to do a thread without doing a relief groove. You have to do a relief groove fine. Also in actions, when you cut an action, you can't do relief groove in an action, or you could, but you wouldn't want to. You'd weaken that action potentially. So you thread in, pull out, same thing. So that's just a good way to do things. So just thought I'd show you that, and hope it works out for you. Thanks.